All right, we're live.
Sweet.
Okay, awesome. Well, um, I'm excited for this week. We have a good long agenda planned ahead.
Yep.
um, so let's get to work. What did you guys think of the case? What stood out to you?
Oh. I thought the case was interesting. I felt like there was a lot of root problems in it, depending on if you were going to focus on Green or Davis.
Mhm.
Is the case coming back to you now, Aaron?
Yes, it is.
I had a hard time focusing. Like, I didn't feel like Davis really managed Green well, but then again, I kind of took the side overall that no matter how Davis manages Green, it's Green's responsibility to like adapt because he has the authority and power. So it was kind of like hard. I ended up, because I don't agree that Davis did a good job to like dealing with the situation. So I felt like the case kind of like there was two sides that like I could have taken. So that's why I thought this case was a little interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt both were very much wrong in how they responded to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Because, like, I mean, he came from a sales point, like an account manager, and he is in a new position, so he needs to learn how to do his job.
Yeah.
But being yelled at for 2 hours on how you need to make charts is not exactly how you're going to help him make charts.
Exactly.
So that's why he tried to avoid him for that long space of time. It's like, well, why didn't you call me in Seattle? I called your secretary there. It's like, you were gone. It's like, well, I didn't want to be there. So I don't want to talk to you.
Right.
Yeah, it's so true.
So, but I think McDonald could have played a little bit more of a mediator because I'm like, he did help him get to the position, but he didn't help him, like, I guess, adapt. So I think that there needs to be a lot of learning how to work with each other. And like my personal approach was for Green to talk to both of them and kind of see, hey, I want to do my job well. What do you see needs to be done right? And it's kind of touchy because he doesn't want to talk to Davis.
Right. I think the one thing that I saw, I think it was McDonald was the one that was in the position before Green was in it. And I definitely agree that she could have been the mediator, the in-between person who could have helped Green come in a little bit more and be more used to what he's doing, kind of set up his responsibilities of what he has to do. And yeah.
Can I ask you guys for some advice on this situation too? How many pages is this supposed to be, the thing that we turn in about this case?
There's not a page recommendation. I think he just recommends that it's about 1,500 words.
Yeah.
Yeah. It said do not exceed.
Mine was a little bit more this time. But he just says around 1,500.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm averaging 3 pages, and it looks like 16-20 words. But I wasn't sure if once again I was way exceeding the limit or underwriting the limit. So
no, that's around. That's like good.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry to be off topic there for a second, but it just occurred to me you guys might know.
No, we're good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, she's trying to think. I think the Green was kind of stuck in a hard spot because he came in and wasn't maybe didn't know exactly what to do. But Davis criticized him right away. Like didn't really even help him or didn't even really do anything to help him. And I think like Davis could have done a little bit better or a little bit more as well to help Green.
Right.
So I want to take. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, like give him a heads up of like what sort of stuff he's going to present to the meeting before they go into the meeting.
Right.
I think that's something that he could have done.
I think for me, Davis took an approach that was, you already have the knowledge, and these are my expectations. And I think he did, in his way, it's him, I assume, his way, approach the situation like, this is what I need and this is what I want you to do. However, the skills weren't there with Green, so he wasn't able to comply. And Davis definitely didn't take any extra actions for the situation, but he did say, you know, over and over again, hey, you need to use charts, you need to use charts, you need to use charts. And that's repeated quite a few times. And then when it comes to the closing of the deals, the closing of the sales, it really needs to be, if you don't have the data to go back to your, you know, boss or board or something like that, the people you're selling to can't close the deal. Right. And so that's the information he kept trying to get through to him. However, I don't think that he said it in a way that Green could comprehend.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like maybe not even comprehend, but maybe there was no mutual respect between each other. And so no matter what they said to each other, they're like, they weren't wanting to listen or change either way that Davis was managing and that Green was like either, I don't know, not using charts. Like, I feel like if they had more of a respect and like built a better and effective relationship, then maybe that commission would have been received well, and maybe Davis would have given feedback better too. Because if you respect someone, you probably wouldn't give them feedback and criticize them for the whole 2 hours. So I think the huge root problem is no one respects each other. And when you don't respect each other, you don't respect what you have to say and don't want to change or listen to them.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, definitely. So it says, if you were Shannon McDonald, would you would have hired Thomas Green? After all of these things that were going wrong, you know, would you have hired him?
I still think I would. He showed a lot of resolve in trying to like rise up the ladder. He just kind of hit a crutch that where his expertise needed to change, and that's he just needs to kind of go back to a training camp to do this particular job. So I would still give him the chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have too. I would have involved Davis more. I don't know why. It didn't explain why Davis didn't really want Green. I don't know if he didn't meet with him as much. But like, I feel like McDonald and Davis were like, I don't know. I didn't really understand that part of the case, but I felt like Davis should have been more involved if Green is directly working under Davis, and McDonald seems kind of like out of the picture now. So for me,
true.
I don't know if I would have hired him, because if I'm McDonald and I know that Davis doesn't want him, but maybe he doesn't want him because he wasn't involved in the process, I don't want that to reflect poorly on me as McDonald, and I don't want to hand him over to someone that literally doesn't want him.
Right.
But people can adapt. I don't know. I think Green has the right skills and can adapt, but I just don't know in the whole situation if I would have hired him.
Yeah. I'm kind of along the same way. I probably would have hired him. But he did, like, he did have the skills and the habits, like you were saying, that he possessed, that I think he would do well in the job. But I think there would have been a little bit more deeper, more in-depth discussion, maybe more of what he needed to do for me to be fully on board to hire him.
Yeah.
Definitely. So it talks about kind of who Frank Davis is, and he wants us to kind of talk about who each person was and what What did they value? What were their end goal? And so the first one was Frank Davis. And I kind of thinking about what he valued or what his end goal, what was he after. I think it was kind of a mixed bag a little bit of what he was after. I don't know if it was very clear what he was after, what he valued.
I definitely think it was alluded that he wanted somebody else in the position other than him, and he wanted to be able to choose the other person's position. However, his actions didn't, I agree with you, didn't really play that out very well. And I didn't see favoritism against him or anything negative against him. He definitely didn't help him in the situation, but he didn't hinder or work against him either.
Right. Yeah, he just really wanted his charts.
Yeah.
He just really wanted his charts.
He wanted. I feel like his personality kind of showed that he wanted communication, and he wanted people. He wanted to work, because like it didn't seem like he liked him, but he wanted to work with him and like look at charts and everything. And then Green was more independent. He was going out doing his own thing, more like centered on how he could do it, more of a sales job type of personality rather than working with Davis, which I think he needed a little more communication and collaboration from Green. So I think that's where their like work styles kind of clashed, and their end goal, like, I don't know if Davis's end goal is to work together more, but that's what it seemed to me more than like Green. Green wanted to like get his, I don't know what he wanted. He just wanted to like work alone and like achieve something alone.
Yeah.
I think it also goes to his start off in the situation. He's like, hey, you know, I want to work for this company. I want to move up to a higher level. I want to get noticed. I want this. I want that. And he was kind of just, he had his path, and he wasn't going to join a team. He was going to take and make his own path, which he did to get to that position at that age. However, now that he got there, he didn't understand that now that you're there, you have to work with the team.
Yeah. I mean, Green was very individual, very not selfish, but he was very much on what he wanted to do and had his own path. And that was definitely what he was after. And he didn't want to even think about working with anyone else in what he was doing.
Possibly didn't have the skills.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how do the actions of Thomas Green differ from the expectations of Frank Davis?
Completely.
Yeah.
For all the things we just talked about, the lack of communication, the no charts. But
overall, his like unwillingness to adapt to Davis's work style or just what he wanted from him. Not that I agree with it or fully, but just like that was the big thing. Like he wasn't willing to adapt. He wasn't willing to show the charts. He wasn't willing to update his calendar or whatever from what I saw. So his lack of adaptability towards Davis was hard.
And he needs to learn who he's accountable to, like who's in his direct network now, because it's a lot different than account manager.
Yeah.
And like Green didn't necessarily agree with the goals that Davis had set, and he thought they were too high and didn't expect them to happen. And I think that's just another sign that Green's expectations were definitely different from Davis's.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, who is mostly at fault for the current situation?
That's hard to pick.
Yeah, that's hard.
I mean, you have the person that chose him for the job, which obviously didn't look at all the perspectives of the job requirement before making that decision, or get the buy-in of the person you'd be working with or for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like McDonald is the least responsible.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I could narrow down, just because it's like, I feel like anyone with the right managing and the right training, maybe their training in place for skills to be developed, a person can fit well. And if they're willing to adapt and create an effective like relationship with their boss and everything, there's things that can come in place that can help people improve. But I think both of them are, the other two are both at fault. They just lack of respect and communication with each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that's all I have to say is McDonald. I feel like she could have chosen someone else, but it's like no matter who you choose, having no respect or not openly communicating with them is going to cause problems. The two root problems like still aren't solved. If I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of a combination of both Green and Davis, just with their lack of not telling their expectations, no communication. Yeah.
Or at least limited communication and not allowing the other person to hear each other.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. So if we were Green, what would have you done if you were Green? Yeah, I think for me, I would have maybe questioned Davis a little bit more. And hey, you know what do you want from me? How can I get to what you have set? And I think it might have taken a little bit more of I was Green to kind of change my mentality a little bit, but I would have gone to Davis and say, hey, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to do this? How can I get to what you're doing?
All right.
I very much agree with you on that. So what I wrote up in mine was HR would give him a 90-day probation and then work on some of the factors. But I mean, right now he's obviously looking at termination. Yeah. And then if I was from Green's position, I would definitely approach it as, okay, what happened? Obviously, because he said he's trying the best he can to do the best he can in this job. That was mentioned in there somewhere. And so with that being the case, I would make clear cut, even if HR is not going to do it, I would go to my boss, get a written clear cut, the expectations, and make them as clear as possible. Long list, checklist type scenario. And then make sure I fulfill those expectations. And if there's some need to be negotiated, ask for negotiation options. However, make that list, have each of us have a copy of it, and readdress it on a regular basis. Am I meeting these expectations? Do they need to be changed? And these type of things. And then if the boss at that point in time, after 90 days or 30 days or whatever else it says, yes, you are, yes, you are, yes, you are, at the end of it says, you haven't done anything that I asked you to do. You literally have paperwork to say, I've done everything you asked me to do. And it puts you in a better situation to where you really hard to fire you.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to put myself in Green's position because no matter who my boss is, I'm going to try to please them because that's just the type of person I am. So, like, he didn't seem like he tried to please him at all. He was doing his own thing. So for me, if I know I'm about to be terminated and I absolutely hate this job, I still want the stability of my job. I'm going to go and be like, hey, I know I haven't been good at communicating. I know I haven't been doing whatever. I want to do whatever you need me to do for me to keep my job. And so I can improve and blah, blah. And on the side, I might be looking for a different job because it doesn't seem like a great fit for my personality. But in that point, to have the stability of a job, I would go and kind of not like surrender to Davis, but like saying like, hey, like I'm willing to change and I'm willing to do whatever you want. You need to give me exactly what you want from me. And that's where Jeremiah's kind of clear-cut list of like responsibilities would come in. And maybe on the side be looking for a job that's better fit for
his personality.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I was kind of at that point that, hey, if I need to learn something new, let's sit down at lunch or something, and or if we can have like a little mini field day, like just help me learn.
Yeah.
But if that's not what he wants to do, then by all means, jump ship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
or just go back to the account manager position. He seemed to be doing great at that.
Yeah. True. I definitely think Green had a big, kind of going back to what you were saying before, but he really was just kind of on his own path and kind of wanted to be at the top. And I think I would have, obviously that's what I wanted, but I would have put down a list or put down something to help me get there and know that, hey, I have to work here and I have to work with Davis and I have to meet these expectations or whatever. And that is going to help me get to where I need to be.
Yeah.
I think that there, it talks about, when I read this, it talked about the power and how kind of politics, office politics, may play into how Green was thinking. And I feel like it was a little bit of, it was both Green and Davis. I feel like had kind of like power. They wanted the power, and that was not going to work because they both wanted that.
I agree. Neither one of them. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I agree. Neither one of them really took on a team mentality and tried to see where the other person was coming from. One of the things I put in the HR thing is that both of them had to take, or at least one of them had to take empathetic listening. And I think it was in our book, right? When it talked about, this is the right class that we did the 7 habits, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I get them confused. I'm sorry. Sometimes I refer to it in the other class. They're like, what are you talking about? Anyways, the 7 habits, it talks about the way you listen to people and the different forms of doing that and that kind of stuff. And I think that both of them needed to practice that and to be able to take and come to a mutual understanding and work from there. Easy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just kind of because they were in that mentality, their styles completely conflicted each other and they weren't able to get anything done. They weren't, I feel like if they continued where they were and what they were doing, they were going to just get worse.
Yeah, for sure. Like something needs to change. Like one of them needs to kind of like give up the want for power and authority. And that's probably Green because Davis is in charge of him. And let someone lead so that they can efficiently do their jobs. Because nothing is getting done right for one of them. And so they're just worrying about each other and what they're doing rather than doing their job.
Now I had that question. Is he in charge of him, or are they both like the equal level, but they need to work the departments together?
I thought that Green was below Davis.
I thought so too.
See, I wasn't clear on that. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
That's what I assumed. If not, then my analysis would have gone a lot differently.
Because if I remember right, Davis was the previous chap, and then he moved up, and then Green took his position.
Yeah. And since he was like projecting like stuff, I don't know, he was making projections for like the whole team. It seemed like he was just, I don't know if it clearly like defined that it's like it's his boss, but the case seemed like it.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
I was hoping you guys had better insight than I did.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, they definitely, their styles were definitely different in how they did things.
I did see a lot of immaturity in Green, I want to say, right? I'm catching the right one here. I'm sorry, I'm reading through this at the same time. Yeah, I saw a lot of immaturity in Green in the fact that he approached life with an off balance of work-life balance. He approached life in a non-sustainable way of doing things, this traveling around, talking to people, all of that kind of stuff. Realistically, if his workload increases, he can't shake everybody's hands anymore. And so, you know, the approach that he was taking is great, but unrealistic for long term. And then the other, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Grant.
Oh, go, you're good.
Oh, the other thing that I'm looking at is the expense. How much money is he spending doing all of this traveling, shaking everybody's hands and talking to them in person? And how many deals is he actually closing, considering it said in the case that these people cannot close because of the fact, or they didn't say can't close, but I interpreted it as they can't close because the people he's talking to don't have the information to be able to move it to the next level. So in essence, how much money is he actually making for the company, or how much money is he costing the company?
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Good.
Which kind of makes sense of why you'd want them to do like a probation time if you were HR.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like they just weren't, they were just also kind of avoiding each other and what they were even trying to do. I think as time, as it went on, as the case went on, they weren't, they were trying to be more competitive than they were trying to come together and collaborate and talk about things. They were trying to say, you know, I'm going to do my thing, I'm going to do my thing, and I'm not going to really care about or even matter what the other person is doing.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, and that shows immaturity. I mean, there was stuff where Green was saying like, just to other people, just the way he was talking about Green to other people, like his numbers are way off basis, blah blah blah. It's like they would never communicate directly with each other. Even Davis would always go through McDonald, and then McDonald to Green, and I just felt like everything was so immature how it was handled between their communication between.
Yeah. I think if they did come together and if they did decide to work together and do things together, I think each person has the certain skills and values that could complement the other person, and they could eventually get the things done that they needed to.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I think if they, I feel like the word just that just keeps kind of my mind is if they collaborated together and actually worked together and talked about what they were doing, they would have just definitely been able to accomplish a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good conclusion to it. Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. I think so. In what way could they have salvaged the situation? How could they have done better, I guess?
Well, I think if Green reached out first, it would have been a lot better for him rather than waiting till HR or the bosses say, hey, we're going to give you a probation time until you learn this crap.
So.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In the very beginning, one of the things I like to do with a new job is try to clearly get expectations and to be able to accomplish them in a way that I can easily go back later and go, this is or is not what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think there's definitely more. Yeah, if Green was able to I think, realize what he was doing, realize the conflict. And then I think just obviously with the new change, I think he had to adapt to the new style, to his boss's style, and say, okay, I gotta, he wants this of me. I've got to get to what he wants, what his desires are, and do the things that he wants me to do.
Yeah.
So it's definitely more action on Green's side than Davis's side.
Definitely.
That needs to be done.
Sounds like, yeah, that needed to be done in order to maybe not have as many problems, or just not to have gotten to this point where Green might be terminated. Like, it seems like it was more, we are all kind of saying it's more on Green's side than Davis's.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what Hoovie has been trying to get us to get to. You're responsible, as in your response says a lot about how you deal with life.
Yes.
True.
Yeah, and I think because of that, because there was not a lot of action on Green, his relationship with Davis was completely broken, because it just grew farther and farther as they didn't do things, as they didn't talk about things, as they didn't work together. The relationship was getting worse. And I think if Green took more action, and started to do more things, I think he could have definitely repaired that relationship with Davis.
Yeah.
Hey, Grant, do you feel that Green was slightly avoiding him?
I feel like, I think he might have a little bit, yeah.
That Green was avoiding Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally think that. I think that's kind of what Aaron was saying at the beginning. It's like, if I were an employee and my boss or whoever just sat me down and criticized for the next 2 hours, I would feel kind of awkward. I wouldn't want to, I would probably avoid him. I wouldn't want to be in the same place as him. I wouldn't want to, you know what I mean? I wouldn't want to make that noticeable, but I mean, I wouldn't really enjoy an encounter with him, so I would try to avoid him a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Kind of what I thought too. Can I share a real life experience that I had of this?
Yeah.
So when I was, I want to say 19, 20, I had already worked for the college for 6 years or something like that. And no, not 16. What was it? I would have, because I started when I was a little older, but I was like a teacher helper, or like a student, whatever, then worked into the actual, but let's say 5 years, maybe 5 years. If I don't even think that many, but whatever it was, I had been there for a while, learned the ropes. So I must have been like 22 actually. So anyway, now that that's established, I'm sorry for the timeline mess up. So anyways, I've been there for a while, learned the ropes, kind of picked up on the computer stuff, done mixed situations or whatever else, but never actually made it into management yet. Taught classes, but not management. My manager, who knows very little about computers, is only a site manager and actually has no authority over me whatsoever. So that was kind of comical in itself. Sits me down and tells me what a horrible person I am, and just degrading. And I definitely left that situation thinking, I'm not coming back tomorrow, right? And so I go back to my actual manager and I asked them what I should do. And their situation was, they can't fire you. Who cares? And I'm like thinking, I don't want this conflict situation constantly. So I went and talked to another individual, and they basically gave me that idea that I regurgitated to you guys, which was, give me a list and let's stick to the list. Needless to say, 4 years later, she got fired. And I was able to use that list to where she was never able to terminate me.
Wow.
That's intense.
And so, yeah, it helped that she had no authority over me, probably, and didn't have the actual ability to terminate me. But at the same time, having that documentation if Green would have started off the job that way with documentation, it really would have helped him a lot. And let's go the opposite side of that. If as an employer, you do kind of make clear-cut documentation, but a lot of times it's so obscure that it's hard to follow and it's hard to take and prove out or any of these kind of things, because like when you see you're applying to the job, this is your job duties, and they're like 3 pages.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys applied for jobs lately, but now they're like 3 pages of ridiculousness.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say clear cut, this is what you got to do, this is how you got to do it, and these are the kind of things, and we're going to review it in 3 weeks and see if you got it, and if not, we're going to take and work on your skills, and the person does not hit those expectations, it's really easy to fire that person.
Yeah.
That's true.
So I think it went both ways. If Frank would have said, "This is what I expect from you," da 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 da, and Green didn't comply, there you go. If Green went the other way and the guy was all over the map, then he would have had no ability to lose his job.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they still can fire you, but you have grounds for all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Hopefully that helps the situation. I don't know if I just went completely off the map or not, but
No, it does. I didn't
Yeah.
think of a solution like that. Like having something clearly written, more of like a contract agreement type thing that helps see who was at fault more easily would have been a really good solution, or maybe not helped get the problem as far as it has gone.
true.
If that makes sense.
I just thought of another situation here. They actually have like a judge and jury in this situation, which is Beck. I just forgot her name. The president, vice president.
Oh, McDonald?
McDonald, yeah. And
Yeah.
so if he was able to go to McDonald with the documentation, then the other person really, even if he completely screwed up, but the documentation was perfect, the other person would have a lot less to stand on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, so it wanted us. So it talks about Thomas Green, and it wants me to share kind of the rest of the story that happened with Thomas Green and kind of what happened with him. And so it says, after McDonald's February 5th, 2008 email, Green took the offensive against his boss. He crafted a series of memorandums, emails, reports, and projections that exposed inaccuracies and creative forecasting. This data enabled Green to build some alliances with other marketing personnel who used the data to ultimately side with him. On April 4th, it was announced that Frank Davis was being moved laterally to an undefined special project. However, Green's tactics were seen as overly brutal by many in the company, and although he won the battle against his boss, his career was irreparably harmed. McDonald distanced herself from him. By July of 2008, Green announced that he was resigning from his position to pursue full-time studies for an MBA.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So it seems like he kind of took it personally and then did a lot of backbiting to prove his deficiencies rather than, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's unfortunate. But if Davis was wrong and was clearly picted wrong, then there should have been a better way to approach showing that Davis was wrong than backbiting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's true. It's like was it worth I felt like he needed someone to tell him like, okay, you're right. Like he wanted Davis to go to put down like his projection and say, you're right, Green. But it's like, was his career and how people saw him worth proving that? Because it didn't seem like it was in the end.
No.
Because I don't know, even if it was wrong, it's like you have to know like at what point is it worth fighting for giving up.
Yeah.
Right.
I definitely think that a quicker resolution would have been, first of all, never talk about your boss or anybody else at work behind their back. That's slander and all kinds of other violations that could be civil actions and stuff like that. But, which I've just got done reading intensely. So the situation could have been dealt with in a simple conversation, simple meeting. Let's go over your charts. Let's go over your numbers. Because even Frank said, hey, if he objects to my thought process, he's more than welcome to do so. You know what I mean? It said it somewhere in the case, just not in that way, which means come in, let's have a conversation. Let's go over the charts. Let's go over the numbers. And then maybe we come up with different projections that matches better with the reality that we're both seeing.
Right. I think, yeah, if, the key from this was that I feel like just what you were just saying, if they come in and say, hey, show me the numbers, show me what's happening, they would have been on a better page together. Instead of being throughout the whole thing, just on a completely different page with different ideas, different things of what they wanted in the future.
Yeah, which I think that all comes down to their lack of willingness to work with each other and to like respect each other. Right. It's like all comes down to that. Like if they had those two things, they wouldn't be in this position. They would have been working together and probably figured out a projection that they both agreed on, and they would have gone to work efficiently after that.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I think that is it that we all have. Were there any last comments or anything?
No,
no.
covered it.
So Grant, I just wanted to get this straight. You have to now write up a paper about what we covered?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
All you have to do is post this to the discussion board.
And that's it. It's over.
Yep.
Yeah. So all being the group leader, Jeremiah, it's just you're kind of facilitating the discussion, and then you just post the link and you send the invite.
Oh, good. So next week I don't have a 10-page paper to do. That's all I want to say.
Unless you really want to.
No, I really don't. It's been way too many long nights on this situation.
Okay.
I'm getting prepared for my novel. Oh my gosh.
Thanks for sending the invite, Grant.
Oh yeah.
Yes, thank you
for your comments, participation. That was awesome.
Yeah. So next week, we want to do it at the same time as this time, or? Yeah,
that would probably be best, just because I tried to do it at BYU Idaho, just not good at it. So
okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm good.
This is good. Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I need to make sure of is because now my other class decided to start moving back towards 12 o'clock. So I have to make sure I'm gone by 1. So obviously we wrap up a lot faster than that anyways, but.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Send out the invite next week. See you guys.
All right. See you.